Hey, what is up? Welcome back, Design Squad, and in this video I'm gonna uncork this series of videos on UX interviews because some of you have displayed some interest in that and asked a lot of questions. Today I want to talk specifically about rejections because you are definitely going to be rejected. Because it doesn't matter who you are, what career trajectory you're choosing, what seniority you're at, you're always going to deal with things you can control, but also those you cannot control. And in this video I want to talk more about the things you can't really control and which are out of your reach. I'm kind of applying this Stoic philosophy lens to this. If you know about Stoicism, it's all about that lens of first and foremost separate and understand what you can actually influence and control and things which you just don't know about. And so the things which are out of your reach, if you think about it, is everything what happens within the company, with that organization who are trying to hire for, let's say, UX designer or a researcher. As a hiring manager, I know for sure that we are going to have very specific skill set they're after. They're going to have very specific definition in terms of who they're after, what experience, what history, industries, skill sets. And because UX is so expansive, there are just thousands of different skill sets and methods and frameworks you could use, and also how you use it, how effective you are, interpersonal skills, collaboration, communication, stakeholder management, influence, everything in between, from technical to softer skills, quote unquote. All of those things you can influence on your end, but you never know how are they perceived on the other end in the hiring team, let's say, in that design team. Because if you take the same exact designer, like let's say they both have 5 years, they worked in different environments. One might have worked in the commerce and customer facing world, another might have worked in enterprise level colleague facing work, one might have been very simple and easy to work with, another might have been big data and complex, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter. The point I'm making here is that the hiring manager is gonna have, okay, 5+ years. Maybe it's a mobile first, maybe it's enterprise tools, maybe it's AI driven dashboards, decision support, perhaps it's a service design. As a hiring manager, I'm going to make that decision, and that's what I'm going to look for. But you don't know that. Even if I list out, let's say, 10 different skill sets in a job ad, you're not going to know for sure what do I want. And if it comes down to, let's say, that your portfolio showcases some of that and you have potential, you might get invited for an interviews, you might get rejected because in the end we understand that it's a mismatch. Then this is a rejection which you cannot really influence and control, apart from actually diving in deeper, collecting extra years, but not really immediately. And you could beat yourself up for it and kind of like put yourself down, but you shouldn't, because ultimately this is just a mismatch, and it's almost like tango. It takes two to tango, but also it takes two sides to actually find the overlaps and actually marry up into this cohesive relationship of employment. Other thing which you cannot control is that you're always gonna face a big competition. You're never gonna know who's applying for it. It could be that the person who has 10 years more experience applies for the same role. For example, I hired seniors who are much more senior than I am, and I'm leading that team, and they have much more experience than I will ever have because they're 10 years ahead. Now they want to do hands-on work. That's totally fine. But you never know that for the same senior position, someone who had that 10 extra years applied. And I could see day and night comparison from someone who just went out of, let's say, 5 years of experience, who just became a senior, and they thought, oh, I have a chance. But you can imagine, you might, when you apply, face 100, 200, 300 applicants if it's a big firm. And I've shown you before those numbers in other videos where for, let's say, every other application, you're gonna have 50 to 200 applicants on average. Doesn't matter what seniority it is. And I can guarantee you that you might end up in top 10, you might end up in top 5, maybe even top 2, but there's always going to be just one opening for the role. So almost 200 people, there's only one person who's going to actually manage to get in, who's going to ace the screening calls, the portfolio reviews, the technical interviews, the leadership interviews, HR interviews. One person out of 200. Are you going to be that person out of 200? You never know. Maybe you're gonna be the second, the runner-up, maybe a third, maybe a 10th. It doesn't mean that you're less worthy. It just means that someone more competent, someone more adequate for that specific scenario, for that specific role, in this time, at this point, in this specific case, won. That's all there is. You know, you never can gauge who you're competing with in these applications. So why would you beat yourself up for things you cannot control? It's that simple. Another thing which you cannot control is the technical aspect of the interviews, because different companies, depends on the maturity level, size, you name it, industry, location, all those factors. Every company is gonna run interviews slightly different. There's gonna be overlaps and industry standards, but even the panel who's gonna interview you, sometimes you might be interviewed by your peers, the potential peers, sometimes by much more senior members, sometimes by the product managers, and sometimes by someone who shouldn't even be there. That's a people's aspect which you never know what you're gonna face. I've been in interviews where I had to meet 10 people from the team and have a one-to-one for 30 minutes with each of them. And in the end, I was like, this is bollocks. Like, why do I even have to do that? I understand meeting a team and jazzing up and things of that nature, but it's so unnecessary. And it was out of my control by that last one. I was way too tired to, to even be myself, to even actually influence the interviews. And that was a half-day activity. The blame is where it would be for the who designed the interview process. Hiring team, hiring managers, it's out of your control. And the actual activities, some people want to do whiteboarding challenges, other people want to just review your portfolio, others are gonna want you to take home and do some work for free, which I'm gonna cover in another video, by the way. If you want it, let me know. I'm gonna make it as soon as possible then. But anyways, all those different activities and methods and stages even, some you could interview in one day. With others, you might need to interview across weeks or months because you need to come back in and out, because we do stages and we assess candidates stage by stage. You could question it, you could agree with it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, all of those variables are against you, but you never know how to play with it. You can master one way to interview and answer all the questions right and connect with people, build some sort of quick relationship, some sort of rapport. It's still out of your control because you could be thrown a curveball which you cannot really anticipate. I've been to interviews which seem super easy myself, and then I found out I wouldn't get in. But those interviews where I struggled and I felt like I would never get in because there was a bit of a friction even with hiring teams. Sometimes they would come and say, hey, come work with us. And it's so surprising because you can never tell what other people think. You can anticipate, you can read their body language, you can read their talks, but ultimately what even they discuss after the session is done, how they assess it, again, the competition, the activities, the requirements, all of those variables. The hiring team are working always really hard to make it just. And this is where I want to sum it up, because ultimately all those different variables here is something you cannot control, and a lot of rejections happens because of those things. I would maybe say it's not 50-50 between the things you can actually impact and those which are actually happen to you. The big part of it is always going to be out of your control. It doesn't so mean that you can just cruise and kind of leave, 1 in 2 chance to actually get in because it's not up to you. No, you can still be better, you can still influence, you can still improve. If you made it to the interview round, it means that your portfolio and your presentation and resumes are fine enough. It's something what happens in the interviews which is not good enough, or something fails, or something doesn't connect, or you maybe don't build rapport or relationship which is necessary to communicate, to market yourself in the right way, then it's something you could probably impact or work around or try to investigate further, or just reach out to those teams and say, hey, why not? Can you give me some constructive feedback? I really appreciate it. And be humble. Don't be one of those bullies who basically reply and say, hey, why don't you get me in? It's again all those different areas, requirements and competition which you don't know about, which could be impacting it. Always follow up. This is what's in your control, and I'm gonna make another video just about that, about what's in your control and how you can assure that you are gonna get in, or at least benefit from the interview. Each interview can be a learning lesson, and so I'm definitely gonna cover that, in the long run. If you want it, leave a comment down below. Maybe you have a specific question. Give a like if you like this video, smash that subscription button, of course. And on that note, I'll see you next time.